Shout out to G-Man Boxing. Where's the piss bottle? It's over there.
Say what you want to say about Bob Arum. I have a lot to say about Bob Arum. I don't particularly have much time for the guy. But what he's done, and I suppose as well I could say about PBC, Al Heyman as well, they play a part in this. But what he's done with the Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder trilogy, Undercard, to me is absolutely genius. If in doubt, bring out the heavyweights. Because heavyweight boxing is my favourite division. It really is. I love heavyweight. I think it's the fact that there's unpredictability in heavyweight boxing. Even if you think you know the outcome of a fight, they say, and it's a cliche, one punch can change a fight. But in the heavyweight division, it absolutely can. You know, if you look at welterweight, if you were to put Errol Spence in there against Ugas is a good fighter. But we'd all pick Errol Spence. We would. Ugas is not he's very strong, but he's not a devastating puncher. So you wouldn't expect him to be able to turn the fight around with one punch. It'd be fought, because Spence is skilled, they're both skilled. You kind of think you know what it's going to be. You know, the upsets happen, don't get me wrong, it could happen, but you wouldn't expect it. In heavyweight boxing, you could get something similar like that. You could get Anthony Joshua in there with, let's just say, Robert Helenius. Now, none of us would pick Robert Helenius to win. But Helenius has punching power. And you just think, if one of them right hands lands on AJ, he's going to be sleeping. Because, believe you me, Helenius hits harder than Andy Ruiz. And that's why I love heavyweight boxing. Because although you couldn't, just in an alternate universe, that's what I'm saying, AJ fights Helenius and something like that happens. You know what I mean? It's an analogy. In a sense of, you could see an upset happening because Helenius has tremendous punching power, and if he landed one of those haymakers on Anthony Joshua, he's in all sorts of trouble. You don't really get that, as I said, in the other weight divisions, the lower weight divisions, pretty much kind of from middleweight downwards. You very seldom tend to see that, where one punch can literally change anything, unless they're devastating punch, like someone like Randall Bailey. What was his name, Chris Jones or someone like that? He fought where he was losing every round and he landed an uppercut and that was it. Randall Bailey was devastating at welterweight. But very seldom you see that. With heavyweights, as I said, you have that unpredictability. I mean, at the end of the day, give two men, one could weigh 230 pounds, one could weigh 240 pounds, both 6'4", 6'5". If either man hits you full force with their hardest shot, they're taking their head off. You could be not noted as a big puncher, but if you just leaned all your weight in and landed a good shot, yeah, you're taking someone's head clean off. These are huge men. Huge men. That's why you see people, even with good chins like Joe Parker, get dropped to heavyweight. Because these people just hit so hard that even if you have a good chin by heavyweight stand, doesn't mean you're not going to get dropped. Unless you're Marius Wack, who just, it's like they have a football helmet inside their own head and they're just impervious to pain. Because Marius Wack, I mean, there's no stopping that guy. I mean, he just keeps going. I mean, I remember me and Ade, when I was over seeing Ade last year, I think me and him were just having a laugh about him, and Ade actually said he interviewed him and he said everything about him was just big. You'd see guys 6'6", 6'7", and they're big, but Marius Wack, just everything about him is just bigger, even though he could be the same size, which I had to laugh at. I thought it was funny actually. But that's the kind of reason why I love heavyweights. And what Bob Arum and PBC have done is they put all heavyweight cards on the undercard of Fury Wilder 3. Bear in mind, when this fight was being talked about originally after the arbitration came out, I was just like, really? Do we have to? I've warmed onto the fight now, to the point where I'm more excited about this than I am AJ Usyk. I'm even more excited now about this card because this is a card that I'll stay up all night for. Because it has plenty of good heavyweights, has plenty of good heavyweight fights. It has competitive heavyweight fights. I think that's the thing that I really like about this, is that the fights are competitive. Even Jaron Anderson. Now, Jaron Anderson I'm very impressed with. And I know the guy he's fighting, whose name is a bit tricky for me to pronounce. I'm just, instead of trying to butcher it, some people don't like that. Instead of trying to butcher it, I'm just going to say the opponent, right? Anderson is one of the most impressive prospects for me. in any division, much less heavyweight division. So to see him, and bear in mind, there's going to be probably more fights announced, and I think Bob Arum did say he wants it all heavyweight. So if there is going to be more fights, likelihood it's going to be more heavyweights. Which hey, I'm good with all that, you know. So we have that as the first fight. We have Frank Sanchez versus F.A. Ajagba. I mean, yes, please. That to me is brilliant. When you have two prospects, now I was going to say two young prospects. Officially, yes. You know, officially, if you look at BoxRec, they're both quite young. Ajagba's, I think, 26, 27, and Frank Sanchez, 28, 29, according to BoxRec. But do we believe that? Really? I mean, F.A. Ajagba, the jury's out on that, but Frank Sanchez, 37, 38, I think is more likely. Just saying the word young in inverted commas when you're talking about Frank Sanchez. But either or, they're both up and coming, they're both undefeated, they're both fighting one another. That's what I want to see. You know, at the end of the day, Ajagba, he is still quite crude, Ajagba. That's why I'm going with Frank. I'll do a prediction video for that fight closer to the date. But Frank Sanchez is a lot more polished. He's not the most polished fighter you'd ever see in the world, but he's got I'd say Ajagba's the bigger puncher out of the two, but Frank Sanchez can punch as well. And I just think that Frank Sanchez has better technique. I think that the rawness of Ajagba is improving. Like, I'm sure we'll see improvements. He still makes an awful lot of mistakes. And defensively, he's quite poor. He's quite open. Bores in a bit too much. He leans, comes in forward after a jab with his chin in the air. I just think he's open to get hit. And I do wonder how good his chin actually is. But even still, the fact that we're getting this fight is brilliant. The fact that both guys are putting their O on the line, which is, again, something that we see so much in boxing nowadays, where it's people just, they don't want to give up the O. They act like if they lose their O, their career is worthless, which is just so ridiculous. It's crazy. I mean, throughout the course of history, there have been fantastic fighters who've lost. Archie Moore, how many times did he lose? He was stopped like 6 times, I think 6, maybe more. But he lost plenty of times. You know, Muhammad Ali lost 5 times. Sugar Ray Leonard lost. Loads have lost. It's just Floyd Mayweather who made it out as though the O was important. At the end of the day, you look at some of the greatest fighters of all time. They've all lost. Sugar Ray Robinson has 19 losses, and he's widely recognised as the best of all time. 19 losses. A loss isn't the end of the world. And you have these people where it's like, the very concept of losing that O is just terrifying for them. Why? At least if you didn't win, at the end of the day, like, if I look at someone who takes a loss, depending on what level it's at, if it's at like a journeyman level, I probably would kind of raise an eyebrow. But if they're in a competitive fight against maybe a fellow up-and-coming prospect, I really don't see an issue. Like, if they lose, but they give a good account of themselves, I can look and say, right, well, you can improve it. Back to the drawing board. I mean, it's a bump in the road, but it's not the end of the road. It's the end of the road if you make it the end of the road, but hey, this is just a bump in the road. You know, I used to say about my ex-girlfriend, it was like, you know, when you did something with her, it was like going over train tracks. You know, you'll get to where you need to go, but you're going to feel every bump along the way. That's kind of how I interpreted that. Maybe that's a poor analogy, but hey, I used it anyway. Maybe it's a poor analogy, but I used it anyway. But either way, I like that fight. Alright, and then obviously we have Kalanicki versus Helenius. Again, to me, that's 50-50, that fight. Some people are saying Helenius very strongly. Other people are saying Kalanicki. You can go back and look at some of my videos. I've always felt that Kalanicki got a bit too much praise. Not say he was a bad fighter, he wasn't. But I never saw anything sophisticated about him. I always saw a leaky defense. I always saw someone who, the minute he fought a good counter-puncher, saying that, didn't think Helenius would beat him. Didn't think that. Was shocked about that, to be honest with you. I really thought Helenius was finished. But the fact that he was stopped, Adam Kalanicki, in pretty devastating fashion, you know, he took a lot of right hands before going down, has me believe that he's probably not going to be fully recovered. And it has me believing as well that his whole style, the way he fights, it's not really going to endear to a long career. And I think that even though Helenius has seen better days now, he's seen better days years ago, he probably will have enough just to beat Kalanicki. I think I'll probably do a prediction video for that one as well, close to today. But again, great fight. Culminating in the main event, Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, the trilogy fight. At the end of the day, whilst I believe Tyson Fury will win the fight, Wilder can punch. Wilder could knock out a horse. He could knock a brick wall down with one right hand. You think that he can't? He's not dangerous. He is. We'll need to just see how he is mentally. That's the main thing. But I'm intrigued in that fight. And I'm also intrigued to know what other fights are going to be on, because they've only had 4 fights announced. You would imagine that a card like that will have 6, 7 fights. If it's all going to be heavyweights, brilliant. Don King used to do that in the 1990s. Look at Tyson versus Holyfield, the first fight. You had Michael Moore versus Francois Boa as the co-main event. I'm not sure. Was that for a vacant title? Yeah, I think it might have been. I remember that fight well. Oh, Francois Boa took a beating in that fight. That was a terrible beating, by the way. He really got battered from pillar to post by Michael Moore. If that fight happened today, that would have been stopped way earlier. You had Henry Akinwande versus, I think it was Alexander Zokin. That was another fight on there. That was brutal. In fact, that whole card had some really brutal fights on it. Really bad. Zokin's nose against Akinwande was bleeding like a tap. Do you ever see someone who sparred for the first time and they've took a really good right hand on the nose? Normally it'll bleed. And normally it'll bleed profusely. That was like Zokin that night. It was just like someone turned a tap on. It was bleeding like crazy. And that was from Akinwande. So Don King did that in the 90s. Now Don King, scumbag, terrible man, horrible man. Put on some good cards. He knew what to do to get his cards to sell. He knew that heavyweights put butts in seats. And Eddie Hearn's kind of gone down that road as well, putting heavyweights on cards as well. Because they do put butts in seats. They do. I think if you ask most fans, they'll tell you their favourite division would be heavyweight. If it's not their favourite division, top 3. You know, for me, my divisions would be heavyweight, superfly, and probably light heavy in that order. So that would be kind of mine. Did I say light fly or super? If I said light fly, I meant superfly. But that would be kind of how it would be for me. And I think for most people, if it's not their favourite, it's in around that ballpark. So when you're putting heavyweights on the card, you're putting butts in seats. And I reckon that that's what they're going to do with this. And I'm open to see who else they're going to put on the card. Because I'm just trying to think who else both guys have. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Charles Martin on this card, to be honest with you. He fought on the last one. I wouldn't be surprised if we see... What was the guy's name? I can't remember the guy's name now. But anyway, there's a few other people that Top Rank have. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more heavyweight. Well, we're definitely going to see some more heavyweights, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more people we know on this card. Maybe even in competitive fights. We don't know what the budget's going to be. But the fact that they're putting on fights like this, hey, I'm all for it. All for it. So that's my thoughts on that. Hope you enjoyed the video. You know, let me know what your thoughts are. What other fights would you add to it? You know, if you're looking at the heavyweights of Top Rank PBC together, obviously they're probably not going to do Top Rank versus PBC for many of the fights. It might just be PBC versus, you know who, God knows who, and Top Rank versus God knows who. But let me know some of the other fights you'd like to see on the card. And are you like me in agreement that having a big heavyweight card is just, it's music to your ears? Because for me it is. I love heavyweight boxing. I love boxing in general. But something about heavyweights. Let me know in the comment section. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button. Subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. #GMAnsRocks, all that good stuff. For now, lads and lassies, I'll talk to you. Peace.